The grand chamber of the Galactic Council sparkled with light from 1,000 stars. Beings from across the galaxy sat in curved rows, their bodies of all shapes and sizes. Some had tentacles, others had many eyes, and a few floated like clouds. Dr. Huck stood alone at the speaking platform. His green scales caught the light as he moved. He was old for his kind, with wisdom earned through centuries of studying new life forms. "Honored members of the Council," he began, his voice calm but urgent. "I come before you with important findings about the species called humans from the planet Earth." Chancellor June shifted in her hover seat. Her long purple tendrils swayed with impatience. She had led the Council for 3 decades and had heard many such reports. "We have monitored thousands of developing species, Dr. Cook," she said. "What makes these humans special enough to call this emergency meeting?" Dr. Cook touched a control panel. A hologram of Earth appeared, spinning slowly in the center of the chamber. Humans appear simple at first glance. They have only basic space travel within their own system. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. But my team has observed patterns that disturb me greatly. He showed images of human history, their wars, their rapid technological growth, their survival in extreme conditions. In just 100 years, they went from first flight to landing on their moon. They survive in deserts and frozen lands, in high mountains where the air is thin. They recover from injuries that would kill most species. And most concerning, they never stop trying to solve problems. Counselor Ta laughed, the sound bubbling through the breathing tubes that covered his face. "You make persistence sound like a threat, Doctor." "It is when combined with their other traits," Dr. Huck insisted. "Humans work together in crisis. They adapt quickly. They use tools in ways they were not designed for. They even continue fighting when logic says they should surrender." Chancellor June looked bored. "Many species share these traits." "Not all at once," Dr. Huck said firmly. "And not with their emotional range. Humans form attachments to anything, even machines. They name their tools. They risk their lives for ideals like freedom or love." The hologram changed to show a human child playing with a robot toy, talking to it as if it were alive. "I believe humans should be classified as Category 1, a species requiring careful diplomatic approach and monitoring." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Category 1 was reserved for the most advanced or unpredictable species in the galaxy. Counselor Min of the Science Division stood up. His single eye blinked slowly. "Data, please, not stories or feelings." Dr. Cook nodded. Humans survived 3 extinction-level events on their planet. Their recovery time was 60% faster than any other known species. They have over 7,000 languages, but can learn to communicate with each other despite this. They have fought thousands of wars amongst themselves, yet continue to advance. He paused, then added, "And they create constantly. Art, music, new ideas. They imagine things that don't exist, then build them." Counselor Ta tapped his claws against the table. "Many young species seem impressive when isolated on their homeworlds. Once they join the galactic community, they find their proper place, usually a small one." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Dr. Hook's scales darkened with frustration. Chancellor June raised a tendril for silence. "We appreciate your thoroughness, Doctor, but the Council has monitored hundreds of emerging species. Humans are confined to their solar system with limited technology. They pose no threat to galactic stability." Ambassador Sung of the Araxian Empire spoke up. Unlike most Council members, the Araxians had faced extinction before joining the galactic community. "Perhaps we should consider Dr. Cook's warning. My people learned that ignoring unusual traits in other species can lead to disaster." Dr. Hook nodded gratefully, but he could see most of the Council had already made up their minds. Chancellor June called for a vote. The results appeared above the center of the chamber. Humans would be classified as Category 3, a non-threatening limited species. Standard contact protocols would apply. "The Council has decided," Chancellor June announced. "First contact will proceed as scheduled next solar cycle. Dr. Hook, Your report will be filed in the archives." As the chamber emptied, Ambassador Sung approached Dr. Hook. "May I have a copy of your complete findings?" he asked quietly. Dr. Hook transferred the data. "You believe me?" "Let's say I prefer caution," Ambassador Sung replied. "My species nearly vanished because we underestimated a seemingly primitive race. These humans remind me of them." Dr. Hook watched the ambassador leave, feeling both grateful and worried. At least someone had listened. Later that day, a junior officer named Bin prepared the first contact message to Earth. He had never seen a human and knew little about them beyond the standard briefing. The message was simple and followed the template used for all Category 3 species. "Greetings, people of Earth. The Galactic Council welcomes you to the community of spacefaring civilizations. A diplomatic vessel will arrive at your planet in one standard cycle to establish formal relations." Bin sent the message without much thought. Just another day, another developing species joining the thousands already under Council protection. He had no way of knowing this routine message would change the galaxy forever. In his private quarters, Dr. Hike stared at the stars visible through his viewport. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue planet with beings the Council had just dismissed as unimportant. He had studied them for 20 years and knew better. "They'll learn," he said to the empty room. "I only hope the lesson isn't too costly." As the ship carrying the first contact team prepared to depart, Captain Day received his orders. A standard diplomatic mission to welcome a Category 3 species. He skimmed the cultural briefing on humans, but paid little attention to the details. After all, how complicated could such a primitive species be? Captain Day stood tall on the bridge of the stellar envoy, his blue skin shimmering under the ship lights. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he reviewed the mission one final time. First contact with humans. A simple Category 3 species barely out of their planetary cradle. "Ambassador Jin, are you prepared for the diplomatic meeting?" he asked. Ambassador Jin adjusted her ceremonial robes. "Of course, Captain. I studied the briefing. Humans are primitive but show basic intelligence. This should be a routine mission." The stellar envoy dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Earth's moon. The blue planet filled their view screens, clouds swirling across its surface. "Begin standard approach protocol," Captain Dad ordered. "Send the arrival message on all frequencies." Lieutenant Bo nodded. "Message sent, Captain. The humans are responding." The bridge crew looked surprised. Most Category 3 species took hours to decode and respond to first messages. Already, Captain Dai frowned. "Let's hear it." A human voice filled the bridge. "Welcome to Earth. We've prepared a landing site at our International Space Center. We look forward to meeting our galactic neighbors." Ambassador Jin tilted her head. "They sound calm. Usually new species show more excitement or fear." "Perhaps they don't understand the significance," suggested Captain Da. "Remember, they've only seen their own kind until now." The landing went smoothly. A small crowd of human officials waited as the alien delegation stepped out of their shuttle. There were no screams, no panic, just curious stares and formal smiles. A human stepped forward. "I'm Director Park, Earth United Nations representative. Welcome to our world." Ambassador Jin performed the formal greeting gesture. "I am Jin of the Verlixian Confederation, representing the Galactic Council. We bring greetings from the stars." Director Park smiled. "We have prepared quarters for your delegation and scheduled meetings with our leaders. Would you like to rest first, or would you prefer a tour of our facility?" Ambassador Jin hesitated, surprised by the organized response. A tour would be acceptable. As they walked through the Space Center, Jin noticed humans staring at their group. But instead of the fear or worship she expected, many humans were recording them with devices, taking notes, or whispering excitedly to each other in a way that seemed scientific. A small human approached one of Jin's security officers. "Your breathing apparatus. Is it filtering our atmosphere or providing different gas mixtures?" the human asked. The security officer looked to Jin for guidance. It's a standard life support system, Jin answered carefully. The human nodded, making notes on a small device. Fascinating. Our engineers have designed similar concepts for Mars colonization. I'd love to compare efficiency ratings sometime. Jin was speechless. This wasn't in the briefing. 2 weeks later, Captain Day called an emergency meeting on the stellar envoy. Report your observations, he ordered his crew. Ambassador Jin went first. The humans have requested technical information about our translation systems, propulsion methods, and material science. They ask questions I would expect from a Category 1 species. Science Officer Lee nodded. They gave me a tour of their research facilities. They're primitive, yes, but they're advancing at an unusual rate. They've already replicated the basic function of our translation matrix. Impossible, Captain Day said. That technology took us centuries to develop. They worked backward from observing it in action, Lee explained. They didn't develop it from scratch. They figured out how ours works and copied it. It's crude but functional. Security Chief Moon looked troubled. The humans have been studying our shuttle. I caught 3 of them scanning it yesterday with their primitive devices. Captain Day turned to cultural specialist Kim. What about their behavior patterns? Kim looked down at her notes. Very strange, Captain. They form emotional attachments to anything. 2 cleaning drones were sent outside our quarters, and by morning, the humans had named them Blinky and Sparkles. They leave food for them. They feed our cleaning drones? Captain Day asked, confused. Yes, and they've invited several crew members to their homes for something called dinner. Engineer Yoon attended and reports they asked detailed questions about our technology while sharing their food. Ambassador Jin looked concerned. The Council classified them incorrectly. These aren't typical Category 3 behaviors. 6 weeks into the mission, things had changed dramatically. Captain Dai stared in disbelief at the human delegation entering the meeting room. They wore clothes that mimicked Verlexian styles. More shocking, they greeted Ambassador Jin with perfect Verlexian greeting gestures. We've been studying your cultural database, Director Park explained. We find your traditions fascinating. After the meeting, Captain Dai returned to his ship and sent an emergency message to the Galactic Council. The humans are advancing too quickly. They've already adapted aspects of our technology and learned our primary language. I recommend immediate reclassification. Chancellor Jun's response came the next day. Your concerns are noted but seem excessive. First contact often causes excitement and rapid cultural exchange. This will stabilize in time. Captain Dai showed the message to Ambassador Jin. They don't understand, Jin said. Yesterday, a human child asked me detailed questions about our star drive. When I gave simple answers, the child corrected me with information they couldn't possibly know. How did they learn it? They said they figured it out from watching our ships land and take off. 3 months into the mission, the situation had grown more alarming. Human engineers had built a prototype communication device based on Verlexian technology. They proudly demonstrated it to the alien delegation. It's just a simple version of your systems, one engineer explained. We're still working out the quantum entanglement issues, but it should be operational within a few months. That evening, Captain Day called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. We need to limit their access to our technology, he said firmly. Ambassador Jin shook her head. It's too late. They're already building on what they've learned. And they're doing it faster than the Council predicted. What about the cultural exchange? Asked Officer Kim. 3 human families have applied to visit our homeworld, Jin said. They've learned our language, studied our customs, and can now eat our food with simple enzyme supplements they developed themselves. Captain Day's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in stress. How is this possible? Their classification was wrong, Jin finished. Dr. Cook was right about them. Who? A xenobiologist who warned the Council about humans. I found his report in the archives. As they spoke, an alert sounded. Lieutenant Bo rushed into the room. "Captain, the humans have requested technical specifications for our medical equipment. They say they've found ways to improve it." Captain Dai stared in disbelief. "Improve our technology? They discovered space travel less than a century ago." That night, Captain Dai sent another urgent message to the Council, marked highest priority. "Humans advancing 8 unpuricd request immediate intervention and reclassification." The Council's response was brief. "Continue monitoring. Preliminary assessment suggests diplomatic inexperience is coloring your judgment. First contact always has unexpected elements." Ambassador Jin read the message and looked at Captain Da. "They still don't understand." "They will," Captain Day replied grimly. "But I fear by then, it may be too late." 5 years after first contact, Commander Han of the Galactic Survey Corps stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. A human colony ship had just appeared at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. Humans had barely mastered interplanetary travel when the Galactic Council first contacted them. Now they were crossing the stars. "Confirm those readings," Commander Han ordered. Lieutenant Jai adjusted the sensors. "Confirmed, sir. It's definitely human-made, but the engine signature shows Verlexian technology. They've modified our designs." Commander Han shook his head. "That's impossible. It took the Verlexians 300 years to develop those engines. The humans did it in 5, Lieutenant Jai said simply. The human vessel approached the survey ship and opened a communication channel. A smiling human face appeared on screen. "Greetings. This is Captain Sun of the HCSI Pathfinder. We are the first ship of the Human Cooperative Space Initiative. We come in peace and friendship." Commander Han collected himself. "This is Commander Han of the Galactic Survey Corps. Your presence here is unexpected." Captain Sun smiled wider. "We're full of surprises. We're establishing a colony on Proxima. Our surveys show it's perfect for our needs." Commander Han frowned. "Proxima is classified as a toxic environment. The methane atmosphere and high radiation levels make it uninhabitable." "For most species, perhaps," Captain Sun replied. "But we've developed protective suits and habitats. The radiation is manageable with proper shielding. We call it challenging but dual." After the communication ended, Commander Han immediately sent a report to the Galactic Council. Their response was slow in coming and filled with disbelief. Meanwhile, the Pathfinder was not alone. Within months, 3 more human colony ships arrived. The HCSI established a base on Proxima, with humans walking the toxic surface in surprisingly simple protective gear. Commander Han visited the colony out of curiosity. Inside their main dome, he watched as humans removed their helmets and breathed recycled air. "How are you adapting to the high gravity?" he asked one colonist. The woman shrugged. "It's only 30% higher than Earth. Our bodies adjust after a few weeks. Some of us even enjoy it. Makes for excellent muscle development." Commander Han couldn't hide his surprise. Most species need mechanical assistance in such conditions. "We're pretty adaptable," she replied casually. "That's kind of our thing." Back on his ship, Commander Han updated his report. The humans weren't just surviving on Proxima. They were thriving. By the 7th year after first contact, human ships were appearing throughout nearby star systems. They established outposts, mining operations, and research stations at an alarming rate. The Human Cooperative Space Initiative had grown from a single ship to a fleet of hundreds. On the mining colony of Rigel 7, human workers operated in pressure and gravity conditions that would crush most species. They developed technologies that combined their own innovations with adapted alien designs. Chief Mining Engineer Cho welcomed a Galactic Council inspection team to Rigel 7. "How are your people surviving these conditions?" asked the lead inspector. Engineer Cho gestured to the workers operating heavy machinery. "We redesigned the equipment to work with our biology instead of against it, and humans are good at enduring difficult conditions. Our history is full of people living in extreme environments on Earth. The inspector made careful notes. Your adaptation rate is concerning to some council members. Engineer Cho laughed. We're just getting started. Wait until you see what we're doing on Europa. News of human expansion spread throughout the galaxy. Some species viewed them with fascination, others with growing alarm. Reports reached the Council of Humans establishing diplomatic relations with species outside Council jurisdiction. The Arcosian Trade Federation, known for its caution, had already signed 3 separate trade agreements with the HCSI. Human metals and minerals flowed into Arcosian markets, while human ships returned with exotic technologies. In his retirement home on Vrelixu Prime, Dr. Cook found his communication system overwhelmed with messages. Species from across the galaxy sought his insight on humans. His original warning to the Council had been discovered and was now being circulated widely. A delegation from the Merid Collective traveled 3 months to meet him in person. You predicted this, said their leader. How did you know? Dr. Cook's scales had faded with age, but his eyes remained sharp. I studied their history. Humans never stop pushing boundaries. They see limitations as challenges, not warnings. What should we do about them? Asked the Merid leader. Learn from them, Dr. Hook advised. They advance faster than any species we've encountered, but they also value cooperation and friendship. The Council's mistake was classifying them instead of understanding them. Not all encounters with humans went smoothly. A territorial dispute erupted in the Ta Ceti system when human mining ships entered what the Dorvan Confederacy considered their exclusive space. The Dorvan ships surrounded the human vessels and demanded their withdrawal. Instead of retreating, the humans proposed immediate negotiations. When talks stalled, the humans offered resource-sharing agreements that baffled the Dorvans with their generosity. Why would you give us access to the very resources you came to claim? Asked the Dorvan commander. Because there's enough for everyone, the human representative answered. And we'd rather make friends than enemies. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to address the rapid human expansion. Reports flowed in from dozens of systems where humans had established presences. They've accomplished in 7 years what took other species centuries, said Councillor Min, who had once dismissed Dr. Hook's warnings. Chancellor Jun, still leading the council, looked troubled. Their technology is advancing too quickly. They've taken our designs and improved them in ways we never considered. Ambassador Sung, who had kept Dr. Hook's original report, spoke up. Perhaps we should speak directly with him. He understood humans better than anyone. On Earth, the headquarters of the Human Cooperative Space Initiative buzzed with activity. Maps showed human outposts spreading across nearby star systems. Engineers worked on new ship designs that combined technologies from 3 different alien civilizations with human innovations. Director Kim addressed the HCSI leadership. The Galactic Council has requested a meeting to discuss our expansion. They seem concerned about our pace. Should we slow down? Asked one official. Director Kim smiled. Slow down. We're just getting started. The galaxy is vast, and humanity is ready to explore every corner of it. The Council will adapt to us, just as we've adapted to space. In his quiet room, Dr. Cook received a formal message from the Galactic Council requesting his immediate presence. After all these years, they were finally ready to listen. He looked out at the stars and wondered if it was already too late to guide the course of humanity's unstoppable rise. Admiral Kwan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Celestial Authority, watching as his fleet assembled. 200 warships formed a blockade line across the Orion Transit Corridor, their hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. This narrow region of space was perfect for his plan. All human ships traveling between their colony worlds had to pass through here. Status report, Admiral Kwan demanded. Captain Gill bowed slightly. All ships in position, Admiral. Our forces outnumber any possible human response by 3 to 1. 7 civilizations have contributed their finest vessels to the Orion Compact. Admiral Kwan nodded with satisfaction. For 10 years, Humans had expanded too quickly, taking resources and territories that more established species had long considered their future interests. The Galactic Council had failed to act, so the Orion Compact formed to handle the problem directly. The humans must learn their place in the galactic order, Admiral Kwan told his officers during their briefing. They are newcomers who have advanced too quickly for their own good. Our show of force will make them recognize our superiority and retreat to their own territories. Captain Gill looked uncertain. Some advisors suggest humans might not respond as expected, Admiral. Their history shows unusual responses to threats. Admiral Kwan waved away the concern. All species understand superior firepower. Prepare to send our message. The communication was direct. Attention Human Cooperative Space Initiative. The Orion Compact has declared this corridor restricted. All human vessels must turn back. Further expansion beyond your current territories will not be permitted. The human response came 3 days later. A small diplomatic ship approached the blockade under a flag of truce. Admiral Kwan permitted it to dock with his flagship. The human diplomat, Director Wu, was frustratingly calm as she sat across from Admiral Kwan. "We seek peaceful resolution," she said. "The corridor is vital for supplying our colonies. Thousands of lives depend on these shipping routes." "Your rapid expansion ends here," Admiral Kwan replied firmly. "Return to your current territories and develop them more slowly, as all species must." Director Wu's expression remained neutral. "We cannot abandon our colonies. Perhaps we can discuss shared access." "There is nothing to discuss. The Compact has decided." After Director Wu departed, Captain Gill approached Admiral Kwan privately. "Sir, I've studied human conflict records. They rarely surrender when their people are threatened." "They have no choice," Admiral Kwan said confidently. "Their military vessels are outnumbered and outgunned." A week passed with no human response. Then sensors detected multiple ships approaching. "Identified as human cargo vessels," reported the sensor officer. 27 in total. Admiral Kwan smiled. "They're attempting to run supplies through before retreating. Intercept them." As compact ships moved to block the cargo vessels, sensors blared warnings. The human ships suddenly changed, outer hull sections dropping away to reveal weapon systems. "They're not cargo ships," shouted Captain Gill. "They're disguised warships." Before Admiral Kwan could respond, human vessels were weaving through his carefully arranged formation, their movements unpredictable and chaotic. They fired precision strikes at key systems rather than attempting to destroy compact ships outright. "Impossible," Admiral Kwan whispered as he watched 3 of his heavy cruisers lose propulsion simultaneously. The battle lasted just 4 hours. The humans didn't defeat the compact fleet, but they opened a path through the blockade. Their colony supply ships rushed through while the converted warships covered their escape. Admiral Kwan stared at the damage reports in disbelief. How did they move like that? Those maneuvers should have torn their ships apart. They reinforced critical structural points and accepted damage to non-essential areas. Captain Gill explained after analyzing the battle records. They were willing to risk their ships and lives in ways our tactical simulations never predicted. The Orion Compact leaders were furious. They ordered a direct strike against the nearest human colony world, Proxima, to teach humans a harsh lesson. Admiral Kwan was replaced by Admiral G, who led a massive fleet of 300 warships to the Proxima system. The human defenders had just 42 ships. "Surrender your colony," Admiral G demanded, "or we will destroy your defenses and take it by force." The human commander, Captain Yoon, responded simply, "Proxima is our home. We will defend it." What followed became known throughout the galaxy as the miracle of Proxima. The human defenders used their smaller ships in ways no military strategist had ever seen. They executed slingshot maneuvers around Proxima's moon to achieve impossible speeds. They converted mining equipment into makeshift weapons. Civilian ships formed defensive screens while military vessels struck from unexpected angles. Admiral G's massive fleet found itself in disarray. Human ships would appear from behind Proxima's moon, strike critical targets, and disappear before a response could be organized. When compact forces advanced on the colony itself, hidden defense platforms activated from within Proxima's toxic atmosphere, platforms that should not have been buildable in such conditions. After 3 days of fighting, Admiral J called a retreat. His fleet had lost 78 ships destroyed and many more damage. The humans had lost 30 ships but preserved their colony. News of the defeat spread quickly through the galaxy. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Chancellor June, who had led the council for decades, looked every year of her age as she addressed the gathering. We must acknowledge the reality before us. The Orion Compact's attempt to contain human expansion has failed catastrophically. Councillor Min presented the battle analysis. Humans don't fight according to any recognized doctrine. They improvise, adapt, and perform maneuvers our ships would never attempt. Their pilots accept damage our pilots would consider fatal. The chamber fell silent as Ambassador Sung, now elderly with age-spotted skin, shuffled to the speaking platform. His hands trembled as he placed a data crystal into the reader. 20 years ago, Dr. Hook warned this council about humans. His report predicted everything we have witnessed. The old ambassador's voice gained strength as he continued. I kept a copy when you dismissed his warnings. The chamber's display showed Dr. Hook's original report. One passage glowed highlighted. Humans exhibit unique responses to threats. When cornered, they become more creative, more determined, and more willing to take risks that other species would consider irrational. Attempting to contain them by force will likely produce the opposite of the desired outcome. Ambassador Sung looked around the silent chamber. The Orion Compact tried to contain humans by force, and humans responded exactly as Dr. Cook predicted. Perhaps it is time we tried a different approach. Chancellor June nodded slowly. Where is Dr. Hook now? Still alive, against medical expectations, Ambassador Sung replied. He has been consulting with various species about human behavior. Bring him here, Chancellor June ordered, and prepare a diplomatic mission to Earth. No more containment. We will try cooperation. 3 days later, as the Council prepared its new approach, reports arrived of human ships breaking through blockades in 3 other sectors. The Proxima defense techniques had spread to other human colonies. In her private chamber, Chancellor June watched recordings of the battles. She had governed for decades and seen countless species join the galactic community. None had challenged the established order like humans. We should have listened, she whispered to herself. All this time, we thought we were testing them. But they were the ones testing us. Dr. Cook adjusted his hover chair as he entered the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. His scales had faded to a pale blue with age, and his once strong limbs now needed mechanical assistance. Yet his mind remained sharp as ever. Council members from all corners of the galaxy watched him with new respect as he took his place at the center of the chamber. I welcome you all to this historic session, Chancellor Min said, her tendrils swaying gently. She had replaced Chancellor June 5 years earlier when the former leader finally retired. Today marks 10 years since the Human Cooperation Directive began. Dr. Hike looked around the chamber. Human representatives sat among the council members as equals now. So much had changed. After the failed containment attempts, the council had finally listened to Dr. Cook's recommendations. Instead of trying to limit human expansion, they embraced it. The Human Cooperation Directive established joint ventures, shared research programs, and cultural exchanges. Now, Dr. Cook served as Director of Interspecies Relations, a position created specifically for him. At 207 years old, far beyond his species' usual lifespan, he had lived to see his warnings vindicated and his solutions implemented. The results speak for themselves, Chancellor Min continued. Trade has increased 300% across all council worlds. Technology advances that once took centuries now emerge in decades, and 20 previously uninhabitable worlds now support thriving mixed-species colonies. On the view screen, Images appeared of the New Harmony colony on once toxic Rigel 7. Humans worked alongside Frelixians and Dorvans, each species contributing their unique abilities to the community. Ambassador Choi of Earth stepped forward. When we first met the Council, we were eager but ignorant. We didn't understand how unusual our adaptability was among galactic species. We simply did what humans always do, faced challenges, and found ways to overcome them. Dr. Hook nodded in agreement. His first cultural exchange program had helped other species understand this fundamental aspect of humanity. Instead of fearing human unpredictability, they learned to value it. After the formal presentations, Dr. Hook moved his hover chair to a quieter corner. A human approached. Commander Ba of the Joint Human Galactic Exploration Fleet. Dr. Hook, she said with a warm smile. The Andromeda mission team wanted you to see this before the public announcement. She showed him images from the first successful long-range expedition to the Andromeda Galaxy. The mission had used human-designed hibernation technology combined with mirrored propulsion systems, an innovation neither species could have achieved alone. We found habitable worlds, Commander Ba said excitedly, and possible signs of new intelligent life. Dr. Cook's eyes widened. New species to meet? Yes, and thanks to your guidance, we'll approach them with the right balance of caution and openness. Across the chamber, Admiral Jun of the Galactic Fleet was showing a group of Council officials a training simulation. Human instructors were teaching alien engineers emergency repair techniques. They call it hacking, Admiral Jun explained. Using available materials in unintended ways to solve problems. Watch how they repaired a critical propulsion system using parts from the food processing unit. The officials watched in amazement as humans demonstrated jury-rigging techniques that saved a simulated ship from destruction. Our engineers would never consider such solutions, one official remarked. They're trained to follow standard protocols. That's why mixed crews are now standard on all deep space missions, Admiral Jun replied. Humans improvise when standard protocols fail. Later that day, the Council held a special ceremony. Dr. Cook watched as Chancellor Min officially reclassified humans in the Galactic Registry. By unanimous vote, humans are now designated Category 1. Exceptional adaptive species, Chancellor Min announced. They join only 3 other species in this classification in our 10,000-year history. The chamber erupted in applause as human representatives accepted the designation. Chancellor Min continued once the chamber quieted. As a famous human philosopher once said, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. As a galactic community, we have certainly grown stronger by facing the challenge that humanity presented. After the ceremony, Dr. Hook met with Ambassador Sung. Both had aged greatly since that first council meeting, when Dr. Hook's warnings were dismissed. Now they sat together, 2 elders who had witnessed remarkable changes. Did you ever imagine this outcome? Ambassador Sung asked. Dr. Cook's scales shimmered with amusement. I knew humans would change the galaxy. I didn't predict they would change it for the better. Perhaps being wrong about your species was the best mistake the Council ever made, Ambassador Sung remarked. Across the galaxy, the effects of human integration were visible everywhere. On the dying world of Mirid Prime, human-designed terraforming technology was restoring the atmosphere. The Mirids had spent centuries watching their homeworld slowly become uninhabitable. Humans had taken one look at the problem and developed a solution within 5 years. In the medical center on Frelixid Prime, human doctors worked alongside alien healers, combining approaches to treat conditions once considered terminal. Human medical practices, sometimes crude but often effective, complemented the more advanced but rigid alien techniques. Human art, music, and literature spread throughout the galaxy, their emotional range resonating with species who had never experienced such expressions. In return, humans embraced alien philosophical concepts and scientific frameworks that expanded their understanding of the universe. Not all problems had vanished. Cultural misunderstandings still occurred. Some species remained wary of human unpredictability. but the foundation of cooperation proved stronger than the differences. On the observation deck of the Council Station, Dr. Huck spent his final evening watching ships come and go. Human vessels flew alongside those of 100 other species, all part of the same community now. A young human researcher named G sat beside him, recording his memories for the historical archives. "What do you think humans brought to the galaxy that was most valuable?" she asked. Dr. Huck considered the question carefully. "Hope," he finally answered. "Other species accept limitations. Humans see them as temporary problems waiting for solutions. You refuse to believe anything is impossible." "And what did the galaxy teach us?" G asked. "That you're not alone," Dr. Huck replied. "That different ways of thinking can complement each other. That the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than any single species can comprehend alone." As stars twinkled in the viewport, Dr. Huck felt content. He had lived long enough to see his greatest fear, humanity's potential, transform into the galaxy's greatest strength. The next morning, representatives from 42 species gathered as the first joint human galactic exploration fleet prepared to depart for regions beyond mapped space. The ships combined technologies from dozens of civilizations, each contributing their unique strengths. Chancellor Min addressed the crews. "Go forth with the wisdom of the ancients and the adaptability of the newcomers. Together, there is nothing the united species of this galaxy cannot achieve." As the fleet disappeared into the darkness of space, Dr. Huck smiled. The galaxy would never be the same again. And that was exactly as it should be.